Let's get into other things now. Bad polls keep coming for Labor. The latest Newspoll shows the Albanese government still 6 points behind the coalition on primary vote, while the parties are again neck and neck, 50-50 on two-party preferred. Perhaps most telling, though, is the fact that voters now consider Anthony Albanese the weakest Prime Minister in decades, trailing Peter Dutton, who's perceived to be stronger and more decisive. For more of this, I'm joined now by Sky News contributor Chris Uhlmann. Well, in campaign terms, Chris, I don't reckon there's anything worse when I run a campaign for your boss to be labelled weak and out of touch. It's hard to come back from that because these are emotional judgments coming from the voter. They're not railing against a new tax or some sort of policy decision you can fix. This is a character-based assessment. What did you make of these sort of assessments today?
Well, Peter, the Prime Minister lacks clarity. He lacks definition. We always knew that he was a bad performer from the last election. He doesn't appear to have got any better. And if I could quote Revelations, be either hot or cold, or I'll spit you from my mouth. And I think that's what we're seeing with the electorate at the moment. If you can't pick a position and stick to a position, then people will begin to wonder what it is that you stand for. And I think with something like the terror attack, which we clearly saw, the Prime Minister should have called it a terror attack. Now, he can wait for the agencies to start to make their assessments of it, but if an attack on a synagogue at a time when there's heightened tensions everywhere around the world, and particularly inside Australia that we've seen, if a firebomb attack on a synagogue isn't an act of a terror, then you wonder what actually it is. And the Prime Minister shouldn't have taken as long as he did to at least come to that conclusion. But I think the lack of clarity in the end goes to the lack of clarity in your own mind. He is torn at the moment between the fight within his own party, which is more or less pro-Palestinian, and the fear that he has of the Greens and those electorates in Western Sydney and how they might break. So I think that explains his lack of definition.
What about playing tennis in the afternoon? I mean, he made the point today in his press conference, he got quite tetchy. You know, I've been to all these other appointments, he says, I had 6 things in my diary. Yeah, but mate, you still finish the day playing tennis. Why don't you get on the plane, you have a plane at your disposal, and get across to a community in Melbourne who are desperate to see some leadership?
Yeah, and those images, as we know, Peter, can be very, very damaging. It goes back to that statement too that we heard from Scott Morrison. Remember the picture of him on the beach at the time of the bushfires and saying that he didn't hold a hose, mate? Well, that actually could be one of those kinds of images, one of those kinds of moments for Anthony Albanese. Now, I do think that our community is very split on this. The problem the Prime Minister has got is he needs to work out where he stands on this and to make that very clear. And I would have thought that from the outset, the very clear message that you send is obviously there's a lot of pain in the community, there are views on either side, but it is utterly unacceptable that the people in Australia are frightened in their own schools and their own houses of worship, and that anyone who approaches anywhere near a house of worship or a school with the intent of trying to cause disruption there are existing laws. We don't need new laws. Like the Victorian police are happy to shoot people with plastic bullets because they were turning out during COVID. So where are the laws being applied, the laws as they stand now?